Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the next session in our series on acronyms, unpacking the acronyms. We're here from Keep Indiana Learning today, and today we're going to be focusing on some acronyms around SPED and ELL, which are acronyms themselves. So if you find yourself in this session and you don't know what those mean, we're going to get you filled in. So we are super excited today because we've got some special guests outside of our normal panel on this. But we'll give a chance for everyone to introduce themselves, and then we'll get rolling with the acronym. So I'll get started. I'm Shannon Quigley from Fort Wayne Community Schools, also a Keep Indiana Learning digital coach. So I'm excited to be here again with this session.
Bo Gibson. So I'm with Lagodi Community Schools, also a digital learning coach, STEM teacher, and I am mostly in the gen ed realm. So I'm going to do my best here today, but it may not turn out so well for me.
Hi, I'm Tim Arnold. I'm a district e-learning specialist at Richmond Community Schools and a digital learning coach with Keep Indiana Learning, and I am certainly here to learn today.
Okay, and our special guest today, we've got Brenny Coomer. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Brenny.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Brenny. I'm from Columbus, Indiana, Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation, and I am the Assistant Director for Educational Technology.
I love that. And Amy Everhart.
Hi, I'm Amy Everhart. I'm the Special Ed Coordinator at Liberty Perry Schools. We're just east of Muncie.
Okay, so if you haven't been to one of our sessions before, how this is going to work is we've collected acronyms that you may have heard in the special ed world, ELL world, and we're going to do kind of a wheel of spins here. And when an acronym pops up, we'll take our kind of best understanding of what that acronym could mean, but then we'll be really relying on our experts here today to help us understand what that acronym means. Okay, so Bo's going to be our spinner of the day. So Bo, do you want to get us started?
Let's get it going. Spin number one. Here we go.
All right. So for the first one here, I drew the first short straw. So LRE is least restrictive environment. And for me as a former classroom teacher, that was putting my students in a situation where they were challenged, but had the ability to be successful. But I'll lean on the experts here to see what else they can tell us about least restrictive environment.
Yeah, that's correct. When we look at least restrictive environment, we are trying to put students in the same environment as their peers as much as possible.
All right, are we ready to do another spin here?
Let's let it roll.
Let it roll. Let's see what happens next. Shannon, I think you're up next as far as the guessing.
Okay.
Right on the border.
Okay. IFEP or FEP. Okay, this would be one that I'm not super familiar with, but because I kind of always refer to, probably when I taught, IEP was more common of individualized education plan, which I think is also on here. We'll get to that later. But the IFEP has an extra letter in there, so I'll let one of the experts explain what this means.
Yeah, this is one of those that makes you think like, oh, is this connected to an IEP? But it's really not. So this is actually an English language learner term. It is one of the different terms that we use to describe students' proficiency with English. So the official phrasing for the acronym is Initial Fluent English Proficient, which is kind of a mouthful, which is why we have an acronym. But basically it means that if a student is new to your school or new to your district, new to the schooling system, they always take a home language survey that indicates their language at home. And then ultimately they take a language test to determine their proficiency in English. And this is one of those ratings that the students can get. If they are identified as IFEP or FEP, it means that they don't qualify for ELL services, but that this is something that still has to be entered in your student information system.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So is this like the leveling? If you get is it the 1 to 4 leveling that they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So familiar with those numbers? You see it in the student file. This is kind of how they got them. Good to know. I learned one there.
All right. Let it rip.
Let's see what we get next. I'm spinning my own wheel here. I'm next on the guessing list. All right, SLIFE. let's see. Students with limited or interrupted formal education. And I know that because I've got the slides pulled up. I cheated. Fun fact about me, I'm a cheater. I really don't know much about this one, so I'm just going to pass this straight on to the experts. So one of the experts take it away from here.
Yeah, this is another term that you'll see used to describe English language learners. And good job using your resources. I wouldn't say that was cheating. I would say that you're being an expert learner and you're being resourceful, which is what we want our students to do from time to time. But ultimately, this refers to students who maybe have had a very interrupted educational experience. It might be students who are refugees, who have never been in a traditional schooling setting, or they've had interruptions in their schooling experience from moving or going to different places that's been interrupted for more than 2 years typically. And this is something that you'll see indicated when the student enrolls in the school, but is also part of that home language survey and some of those general enrollment paperwork.
So, Brittany, would the migrant education program fall under this, or is that gap not usually long enough?
It depends on this individual student, but I would say a lot of our students who are in the migrant education program also qualify for this. You'll see a lot of districts in different parts of the country that have newcomer programs for ELLs, which means the students are very new to the English language and even the United States from time to time. And a lot of them are also categorized as students with limited or interrupted formal education.
All right. Another lesson learned for me. All right, let's go ahead and get another spin going. Tim, it's back around to you when this thing stops.
All right, I got the triple here. I'm gonna go English learner, or English language learner, English learner, and multilingual learner. And so I'm assuming some of those are somewhat interchangeable, but maybe not completely. But I'll hand it off to our experts and see what they can tell me about those.
Wonderful job. You are right on the money. These are all terms that can refer to our students who are learning the English language. And I think it kind of depends on your school district on which one is used more frequently. I know in the past we used ESL in my district, and then we moved to ELL. And now a lot of our programs are talking about more multilingual because our students really are multilingual if they're speaking more than one language, right? So it refers to the students who are fluent or are developing fluency and proficiency in multiple languages. Most of the time, this is also the students who are qualifying for English language services. So might have a dedicated resource time during the school day and an ILP, which maybe we'll get to that term here in a few minutes, but your students who are still developing that proficiency.
All right. Spin the wheel.
Okay, idea. Well, I've got a lot of ideas around this, but the IDEA or IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So this is probably responsible for a lot of the acronyms I'm guessing that we're seeing today. So maybe we can hear a little bit more about what that really is about.
Yes. So IDEA led to 2 more acronyms. It led to what we call a FAPE, or a free appropriate public education. And then in their least restrictive environment, which we heard about, is that LRE. So again, providing that education, and it had to be free, public education to any student, even if they had a disability.
Excellent.
Okay, good.
Oh. All right. Let's see. This is my own, so let's see what I get. Oh, I know this one. Yes, I don't even have to look at the notes. So I should say I know the first one, teacher of record. And I would assume that the EL teacher of record would be English language teacher of record. All right. So these are ones I'm familiar with. Of course, every student with an IEP would have a teacher of record, which is responsible for making sure that IEP is met. But I'm sure there's more to it than that. So if one of our experts could fill in the gaps here, I'll let you guys talk a little bit.
Bernie, you can go ahead. He covered that pretty well in regards to special education. It is the teacher of record responsible for writing that individual education plan. So there may be other teachers that service the student, but the one that makes sure we're compliant and meet all the deadlines is the teacher of record.
It's pretty similar for English language learner teacher of record as well. It's the staff member who supports the students who are identified as ELLs and helps write the ILP. But just to know, a slight difference here is that we'll have students who at some point graduate from the ELL program once they've reached proficiency, and they might still have an EL teacher of record who produces those documents and says the student has graduated, but they're not necessarily getting that dedicated support time anymore. I had some students in my classroom that I got a document from the ELTOR that said, hey, this student is, not in my EL class anymore, but just so you know, they know these languages and they graduated from the program 2 or 3 years ago and they have fluency and proficiency.
Very good. Very good. For those keeping track, I'm now 1 for 2. So 50%, it's not bad. All right, Tim, back around to you, right?
Yep, I think it is. ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act. And although we've all done a lot of work with things that came from this, I'm not sure I know the core tenets of the Every Student Succeeds Act. So I'm going to need some help here.
Well, there are lots of parts to it, so I don't know if I know all of the different parts, but I do know some of the key ones as it relates to English language learners. And one of those being that there was an amendment to it several years ago that basically states that it's a requirement that education agencies have some type of entry and exit program for students who are English language learners, a way to identify students. That's a process to identify home languages, to see if they qualify for additional language supports and services, and then some type of assessment or process to help the students exit that system. And we have information on if they develop that proficiency and if they require those supports anymore, or if they don't.
Yeah, I think the idea behind that, we have IDEA for special education, but this one just expanded it to cover more diverse or like underprivileged groups. So it does your ESL students or your ELL students. It also looks at students who come from poverty. It definitely wants to make sure that, again, every student is succeeding.
All right. It looks like we have a celebrity guesser.
Yeah, so we brought in the reinforcements here in case I don't know. Okay. AT. Period. Do you know what that means?
Oh.
No, I didn't know. This is one I do know. This is assistive technology. So if a student has some sort of limitation or they need extra support, these are technologies that we can use. We use them in our district to provide to students who might need speech language, assistive touch screens, so iPads that are dedicated to their special software for screen reading, those types of things. But I don't know a lot about how this maybe hits with EL students as well, so maybe we can hear a little bit more about that, or from all angles.
Amy, did you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Our goal with this is just to increase the student independence. But one thing that I always think of when it comes to assistive technology, of course, all of us in the technology world, we think of devices, but really it can be anything like low tech, like a pencil grip, or it could be lined paper that's raised or things like that. Just anything, again, that's going to help increase that student independence. But yes, of course, we're all familiar in the technology world with the amazing features that our devices have. Word prediction. There's some other acronyms on this wheel here with text to speech and things like that that are all part of assistive technology.
Yeah, I would say assistive technology is certainly something you'll see more in the IEP special education world. But if you're thinking of a more broader sense, which I guess isn't necessarily assistive technology at this point, but in terms of how that connects to ELLs, it's giving students tools so they can be successful. as well, which I think a lot of us gravitate to translation tools and those type of things. But even just word prediction tools to help students with spelling can also be an example of a tool that could support English language learners.
Right.
I've not ever heard anybody object to one of these, but as a person who's of a certain age who has now increased the size of the font on his own phone, I'm very much in favor of things like this.
And I love that point, Amy, about it not all being tech. I guess my brain initially goes technology, but you're right. There's so many other things like that we use that just support student learning independently.
And I think we're so fortunate in Indiana. So many schools are one-to-one that's where we go to now because the device can do so much more. They're smart devices.
Math teachers out there, Desmos actually does support screen readers. I don't know. It's not really hidden, but you may not notice if you don't pull up the little keyboard option. So those of you who teach math and use Desmos quite a bit, it is compatible with screen readers. There's even a Braille option. I'm not sure exactly how that works. And there's an option to let it hear your graph. So it will play a tone that kind of matches, I don't know, how the slope of the graph. Just kind of some interesting, assistive technologies that go along with that application. So just wanted to throw that out there. Never a bad time for a Desmos plug. All right, what are we down to 5? All right, and I think I know like at least 3 out of these 5. So
good odds.
I know this one. I'm all over this one. All right, IEP, ILP, individualized educational plan, or I think that would be individualized learning plan. So students with disability or students that just need extra support in the classroom may have an individualized educational plan. So experts take it away and fill us in on the nitty-gritty details about this.
Yeah, that's just so in special ed is the IEP, and that's where we set goals for the student, and we put in the services and accommodations to hold us accountable to make sure that all those things are in place and all the stakeholders know what we're working on.
And in the ELL side of things, this is very similar. It's basically the ELL version of a document that gives information about the students, really what languages they speak, some of the assessment information that they take from that home language survey, as well as usually WIDA is the testing that we have in Indiana because we're a part of that consortium. But the information from the assessment that gauges student proficiency in English is indicated on there. So when Shannon was talking about like the 1 to 4 rating and the numbers, this is where you would see all of that information, as well as any suggestions on how to support the student.
Those of you that have been following along with this series, WIDA was one of our acronyms from our last sessions on data and testing. So if you haven't seen that yet, go back and give it a look.
All right, last 4. Tim, it's back around to you. So whenever the wheel stops.
I was really hoping that I was going to get this one because as a former history teacher, the CCC was the Civilian Conservation Corps of the Great Depression era pre-World War II. But that's not what this is. This is the Case Conference Committee and the annual case review, which kind of fit together. The Case Conference Committee, that's the group of people that sit in with parent and student, review progress and set goals for the next year. And they do that in the thing called the annual case review. That's what I've got. What else can you add?
No, you definitely nailed that. So a lot of times in our district, when we schedule meetings, we use Google Calendar and we share those invites out. And so a lot of times we're putting like CC, which would be just a case conference. So each student has to have an annual case review. So we have to meet at least once a year to talk about their progress. But many times we meet more, whether the student isn't making progress that we're expecting or we want to make a change, we'll hold a case conference. So I threw these in because I will have the new teachers be like, well, what's this ACR thing I have? Or what's this CC? It's just if they switch it up on them, so trying to clarify what we're doing.
And that's important for young teachers because, a general education teacher is a required person to be in the meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, we ready to spin again?
Spin that thing.
All right. Shannon, if I can count right, this is going to be your last one.
Okay. Hope I,
Look at the math teacher bringing the math in on all these.
I'm really good at counting to 3.
well, good. You picked the one that I wasn't, I didn't have a lot of talking points around, so this is perfect. Basic interpersonal communication skills. I'm guessing this is the skill set that students have to be able to kind of advocate for themselves and speak, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to not give anybody misinformation, and we'll turn it right over.
So you're close. This is basic interpersonal communication skills is correct, but this is a term that really is a part of some theories in language acquisition. There's a lot of research out there if you love to dig into that type of stuff. Cummins' iceberg theory is a really good one to dig into if you want to learn more about it. But basically, the idea is that some of our students might seem super proficient when it comes to basic interpersonal communication skills. Like they can talk really well with their peers. And then when you get them into the classroom, you're like, oh, I saw them talking really well with this student, but why are they struggling with these concepts in my social studies class? Or why are they struggling with this and this and this? And that's just because these interpersonal skills take less time to develop in another language versus the academic vocabulary, which is another acronym that's not on this list. But if you want to add one to your toolkit, it's CALP, which is the cognitive academic language proficiency, which those are the academic words. So the iceberg theory is basically that you have the interpersonal skills at the top, but there's more to it. It's the academic language that's below it and takes a little bit more time for students to develop that. And that can be anywhere from 7 to 10 years.
Okay, that's good information. And
that could just be not even English language learners. I mean, all learners take a lot longer to develop the academic vocabulary compared to just, kind of the common parlance or whatever. So,
yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Ooh. Oh, I know both of these. I'm in ship shape here. All right, UDL, Universal Design for Learning. I'm right?
Got it.
All right, I was just making sure that I'm not going to go off on a tangent, and I had the wrong 3-letter acronym here. So, Universal Design of Learning. That you can implement this in a physical classroom. You can implement this if you're designing courses online, but it's just essentially the idea that we're designing for all learners, for all abilities, so all students can approach the learning material and make sure that they can have an effective learning environment. So experts add on to that, or correct me if I said something wrong there.
No, that's definitely good. This is one where we're removing the barriers so that all of our students can get access. So again, you talked about physical settings. So that could be automatic doors. It could be the ramps, into your building. Or it could be what we're doing with digital classroom, making sure there's closed captions. And honestly, the one thing that I love about this is, as a mom, I've definitely used those physical things. I've used a ramp when I pushed a stroller, things of that nature, or closed captioning when I'm in a meeting and I have to watch another video, like I might be turning on that closed captioning. So this is what I love about all of these assistive technology and things like that, is it benefits us all. I use my text, to speech on my phone if I want to listen to an article, but I don't have my eyes on it. So definitely helps us all.
It's really about designing things proactively. So it's thinking firsthand, what are the most flexible options that I can give all my learners, whether they have additional needs or not, that everyone can benefit from?
And in my opinion, a lot of times when you're thinking about UDL, you're going to present information in a multitude of mediums. And that really does just benefit everyone, because students are getting information in multiple different ways, and there's just different methods for it to sink in. And so it really truly is just better for everyone involved. I know a lot of times we think about our special needs students, but really everyone benefits from that.
I think that's one thing that we found with a lot of the technology is that before it was like the student with the IEP had access to that, but now I have teachers willing to give audio to anyone. So why wouldn't I just let them listen to the audio version of this book? Before it was like you had to check out the thing, and now you don't have to. So I do think it's helping everyone, and we're more open to things now.
For sure. All right, there's only one left, but I'm going to spin it anyway because I really enjoy doing it.
I feel like I keep turning my head to see where it's.
All right. Well, we covered this one in the last one, but it stands for text to speech or speech to text. So whether your struggle is in the area of speech or your struggle is in the area of reading text, these are apps and programs designed to assist you in leveling your performance. So somebody else hop in there for me.
Yeah, I like this one because I think the acronyms are so close that sometimes even us in the education world, we flip like, ooh, which one is the like actual reading it to me and which one is, we have students, we often refer to that as dictating, which again takes away that physical limitation. A lot of times my kids have the ideas that they just struggle to get it on paper, but I definitely know if I'm walking, I can tell Siri to send a text, so I'm benefiting from that as well.
This is a really good one to almost wrap up on because I feel like it's an example of all of the different terms it connects to the ones that we've talked about, right? This is an example of an assistive technology that might be listed in an IEP, but could also be something that embodies UDL. If you give it to all of your students, including English language learners, this can be something that they leverage. And maybe it's also something that you see on that ILP from the EL teacher of record. Just a different way for students to learn the information, whether it's reading with their ears or a different way for them to show their understanding with that additional support of being able to write with their voice.
Excellent.
Brittany, I'm glad you said that because it kind of made me think it was like such a good example of UDL that a lot of sites are, I think, improving, like immersive reader. Kids get access to audiobooks in a lot of places now. So it's like a good natural way to explain that to people if they don't understand what that means.
And one thing that I learned, and I don't know, but I learned it recently, was that some copier machines, we're actually working on getting that in our district, but you can scan it and it will be what they call, I'm going to throw another acronym out, but OCR, so that it makes it a readable PDF. So again, then that feature will work so the screen can read it, and it is that text to speech feature, but it has to be a readable PDF, and I did not know copy machines could do that.
That's cool.
Awesome. Well, our wheel is empty, folks. So we are done for this session of Unpack Your Acronyms. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to our guests, Amy and Brittany, for being here. When I looked at this list, I knew that I wasn't worthy. So I'm so happy that you were here to fill us in on one of those. Please continue to follow Keep Indiana Learning on all the social networks. Find this live stream and many others on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel. And until next time, we say thanks and have a great day.
See you guys.
See ya.